What's up, everybody? I'm Paul, the producer, and this is FitSpaz Recovery. I'm here to help you get fit, healthy, and stay sober. So I'm coming at you a little off schedule this last week. Today is Thursday. I've had a habit of doing these on Wednesday, but my schedule's changing up with my parenting and various things like that. And so last week I did it on Tuesday, and this week I could have done it on Tuesday. I could have done it on Wednesday, but I was not in a proper state of mind to come to this and give you something that I think would be positive in the end. I felt hostile. I'll get to all that and why in a second, but first up is basically I'm still doing fitness. I'm doing fairly well. I've been keeping up with all my upper body workouts, and I still have a back problem. I've gone to the chiropractor for a total of 5 times now, and I have one more trip to take in my current package that I paid for, and I'm a little better, but it's not super perfect, but I'm keeping up with things. It's making me feel good. I'm still doing dance on Wednesday nights. I did one last night, a dance routine, and it's 40 minutes, made me sweat profusely. First time doing this one. It's called Go For It. And it really actually felt good how well I was doing following it. Although it was still a disaster, considering it's the first time out, I felt like my mind is getting the vocabulary physically from past routines, and I'm integrating well with doing new things. So this is the first time out, and I'm repeating each of these once a week for 7 weeks. And maybe I'll do it twice in a week on an occasion or something. But I really appreciate how I see the improvement in my movement. I appreciate it for exercise, and beyond it just being exercise, I like that I'm doing something that's stimulating the mind and making me focus on what I'm doing next. It makes you think. So beyond the fact that it's exercise and movement, learning something and just being good for the mind, having to focus on what you're doing, that's what I like about it. And so I've been avoiding leg workouts a lot. In fact, I haven't had a really heavy, hard, proper leg workout in a month. But I've been concerned about losing some of my muscle mass in my quads. So I decided today I did some light legs. And I think it may not be enough overall, but I just wanted to be light because I don't want to overdo it and keep hurting my back and so forth. So I did 10 lunges, side lunges on each side, 10 each side, 10 front and back lunges on each side. I did like 15 sumo squats and 20 regular squats. And the side lunges, I had a 3-pound dumbbell, which is like nothing, but it was like I did feel a little burn in my legs. So I will probably do that again next week, and I will increase a little resistance, and just to maintain what I have because I don't want to lose it. But I also don't want to be re-injuring myself, re-hurting myself. Tomorrow I have my chest workout coming up, and for some reason it's my chest workout that gives this shoulder a lot of stress, and I can feel it. There's just like this discomfort or pain that's manifesting here, and so my idea for tomorrow is not to push as hard as I can to go beyond, but lighten up just a little bit, give myself a break. Certainly not to be lazy, predominantly just to protect this shoulder a little bit, because I'm not liking what I'm feeling there. And I don't know why it's chest workout. I do shoulder workout, which involves all kinds of shoulder stuff and pull-ups and back stuff, and I don't get it, but anyway, onward. Saw a fascinating movie yesterday. It made me think a lot about a lot of things. I think it's called Experimenter, and Winona Ryder's in it. And Winona Ryder is a total fox. She's a shoplifting fox, but she's a fox. And so, but anyway, she did a really good job being believable in this movie. And it's about this you guys have probably heard this somewhere along the line in school. Some Harvard psychologist from the experimental psychologist from the early 1960s in that era did an experiment where he set people up to study authority, like abiding by authority. So he put people in this chair and their job was to ask questions of someone else in the other room, and when they got the question wrong, you have to zap them with electricity, and each subsequent time someone gets it wrong, you continue zapping them with more and more electricity. So the interesting thing here is it's an illusion. The other person in the other room is only pretending to be suffering from the electric shocks, and the real experiment is to see how people respond to authority when they're told, like, hey, no, you got to keep going, keep zapping them. So the person in the other room, I think who's called the learner, I don't know why they call him the learner, they every time they get something wrong, this person pushes a button and it's like bzzz, you hear that noise, and the other person in the other room's like, ah, all the way to the point where they're like, please stop, don't do this anymore. And then the doctor in the laboratory coat behind you says, no, you must continue. And so people are all nervous, but they're like, hey, I'm not responsible for this, but okay, I'm going to zap. So it tells you a lot about the person. It tells you a lot about the nature of humanity to conform, especially when, you know, there's an authority figure there. You're doing something bad. You know it. It goes against your grain, but you're doing it anyway because you somehow think it's not you who is responsible when, yeah, you are. It's that other person that's responsible. And so why am I bringing this up? This experiment in psychology of people to deal with... because you know what? This is what's bothering me the last week. And so let me just first tie it into emotionally. That's the number one thing. When we're having bad days as recovering addicts or people who used to do drugs or indulge a lot and we want to stay sober, nothing triggers that mindset of wanting to use more than like being emotional, feeling down, feeling depressed, feeling bummed out. And so what's bumming me out and what's been making me think about drinking and smoking this past week, and I haven't had a close call, like just the way the mind talks to you and it like speaks to you, making you want to do things even though it's not in your best interests. It's what happened in Orlando with the mass shooting at the Pulse nightclub. And what's really been bumming me out, so aside from the fact that when something like that happens, I just get put on an emotional tilt in general because I hate to think that a bunch of regular, nice, random people are slaughtered by somebody cold-hearted and stupid and out of his mind and angry and sick. And it just really bothers me a great deal. Like, I can't tell you, like so many of you out there, you're bothered by it. You're not happy. And then to make matters worse, okay, so a couple days after that happened, I wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning, and first thing I usually do is I check Facebook, which is kind of a shame in and of itself. Shame on me for checking Facebook first thing every day, okay? But so, I mean, like, I wake up 6 a.m., my eyes are still not adjusted to the brightness. I'm looking at my phone, and I have one eye closed because I'm like, damn, this thing's bright. And it's like all negative, all the noise that comes from something like this that happens, the nightclub shooting. It's like everybody's out there. So here's what I think. It's that it becomes an excuse for people to argue, to place blame on others who are completely innocent for all kinds of different reasons, okay? Without getting into the political specifics at all of a few things that play out heavily politically in the right and left-wing media. It's just an excuse for people to argue, and I look at it and go, man, with all the blaming going on, with all the hatred and vitriol, the way people are treating one another, here's a problem we have in the United States with gun massacres happening on a regular basis, and we're never going to solve this problem the way people can't even talk about it. Fuck you. Excuse me. Because I'm mad because a reminder came up, and it's like when I'm filming like this, I don't want anything to interrupt my phone. That's why I put it. Sorry I said the F word. I don't like interruptions when I'm doing this thing because I get in a train of thought, and so I get bent out of shape. So whether my neighbor turns on the lawnmower or another neighbor's revving up his super muscle car, I don't want it because it distracts me. Or even the light flicking off. I don't like the interruptions. So a little bit of a temper issue. I'm sorry. I will resolve that anger issue. Write the F word now, okay? So my train of thought was going something like this, that there's so much noise as far as people attacking one another, unfriending one another, berating one another, blaming this group, blaming that other group. Even one guy I read today said, I have no problem. I want with people in the NRA dying, Republicans, rich white males who unconsciously don't realize their privilege. And I'm like, oh, wow. And that's really upsetting to me because I feel like he's including me, especially in a category where, like, I'm pro-human. I'm pro-people thriving. I'm pro-people being treated justly and kindly and everything. So here's the bottom line of what I'm getting to with this. It's that when something horrible like this happens, people like crave normalcy. They want to get back to normal. And so what I feel like is lacking is moral support. So why can't people just agree to disagree? You don't have to respect my idea, but you can respect the fact that we disagree and we both commonly agree that we don't want this to happen. So instead of arguing, instead of pointing the finger and blaming these various political things, why can't people show more compassion and more moral support? Like, we're mutually brokenhearted that something like this happens, but a whole great number of people out there are so pissed off and pointing the finger and blaming it. I'm like, do you guys realize all this noise amounts to making the situation worse and not contributing to making a single solitary thing in the world better? So that's what's bugging me, because people don't want to just forget the politics for a second and offer moral support. And I'm not saying the politics are irrelevant. They are totally not irrelevant. I'm just saying that you're accomplishing nothing. You're blowing out a bunch of negative, and actually all you're doing is just amplifying the negative and amplifying all the negative noise. So are you really contributing something to the world, like fighting against this, that, and the other thing, when people just need moral support? I feel so this week, as a consequence of what happened, I've been feeling frustrated with people. It's caused me to be more withdrawn from people because I just get frustrated and I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear the stupid things people say. And I have my own opinions about things, my own frustrations about things. And you know what I am not? Another one of these, I'm not a conformist. Another one of these interesting things in this movie I saw yesterday was an experiment where you have like 8 people, and 7 of these people are in on the experiment, and one person is not. And they say, okay, look at these 3 lines right here, 1, 2, and 3. They're all different lengths. And so the experiment is you have all 7 of these people. Say the wrong answer. The answer is which line is the shortest, for example. And it's very obvious which line is the shortest. You have all 7 of these people here who are in on the experiment say the wrong line. So they're like 3, and it's this really long line, and it's obviously not the correct answer. And the experiment demonstrates that the 8th person feels so much fear of ridicule for like stating the truth, that line is the shortest line and you're all wrong, that he just conforms and he or she lies about the length of that line. And that is classic when it gives you a tell about humanity. And also when you think about the just multitude of ways where we are forced into a position of conformity. Well, I don't like that. I'm not the conforming type person. If you're telling me to zap somebody and I think it's wrong, I want to be self-aware that I think this is wrong. I don't have to listen to this authority figure. It's an immoral thing you're asking me to do. So I want to say no. And I also want to point it out. And you know how much it sucks being that person who's willing to tell this crowd, you guys are out of your mind. You're wrong about something. I felt that way on my old radio show regarding marijuana politics all the time. People were putting me into a position of shaming me just for expressing my viewpoint. And it's a relative viewpoint. It's not as obvious as the length of the line, okay? But the fact that there is no respect there for the fact that people disagree, and you don't have to agree with everything they feel to love them, but it's this deal killer. In so many relationships out there, if you don't agree with you can't be friends with a person, of course. So there are things that I think you can justifiably say, oh, I can't be your friend. But there are also things political that you should be able to hear a civilized point of view. You should be able to digest and go, okay. And to me, the transcendent view is really not being I'm on this side or that side. It's being able to look at both sides of an issue and really understand where both of those people are coming from, or more than two. Because in complex situations, you have more viewpoints than just the two, especially in the right-left political spectrum of this country, that are right. So it really shows a lot of mental maturity and intellectual ability to be able to say, okay, I understand where he's coming from, and where he or she are coming from. And not be like, I hate you, and this is a deal killer, you know? And throughout life, our perspectives change about things too. I can give you an example, and I will. Like, abortion is one of those things where I can understand where people are coming from all over the spectrum of this issue. With the exception of a few things, I really can understand where women are coming from, where pro-lifers are coming from, where pro-choice people are coming from. And in my own view, I'll just share it with you for the hell of it. If there's one thing that started tilting me toward the pro-life side of things, it's having a child. The absolute amazing feeling of having a child and realizing what that means, what that is, falling madly in love with that child, loving that child more than anyone else in the world. And that's what it means to be a parent. And knowing that you can have that intellectual idea before you have a child, that, oh, of course I'll have a kid, I'll love the kid. Having that intellectual knowledge is not the same as going through the experience and developing your emotional, personal, intellectual perspective from that experience. So like nothing ever made me feel more like inclined to understand where pro-lifers are coming from than having a child. And I'm not saying that I refuse to identify or understand anything people are saying on the other side. What I'm saying is I refuse to take sides because I get where everybody's coming from, and we don't have to choose sides. The best we can do is wisely avoid certain situations in life where we have a crossroads where we're having to deal with that. I could have run into a situation where I impregnated certain women when I was younger, and it would have been a nightmare having a child with these particular individuals, okay? But I hope people hear that that's not a moral judgment of anybody. It's trying to illustrate that you have these very complex issues where people feel very strongly in different positions, and to the point where they alienate and hate the other, to the point where some people want to kill that other person. And then you become like, you know, when you hate so much, you become the ultimate enemy of yourself, because like you hate what they're doing, and sometimes, you know, you're self-righteously wrapped up in your mind. You think you can justify killing somebody because they have a different view. On the contrary, you don't have to accept it, but try to understand it. Because once you cross a certain threshold, you can say you respect life, but if your answer is, it's in defense of those lives, you still don't have the godly moral authority to go and take someone else's life. So I'm deeply impacted by what happened this week. You know, Sandy Hook at that elementary school where all those little kids are shot up, that one made me beside myself with anguish. It was hard to fathom, and it was all the same narrative. So whether it's kids, whether it's gays, it doesn't matter who's getting shot up. If you look at what transpires after one of these horrible events, there are just so many players in the news media and leaders who are behaving like complete jackasses, in my opinion. And that's what's hard for me. Instead of offering more, are you hurting about this? Like, let me tell you, I know you're hurting about this, and I just want you to feel better. Instead of that, it's like, you're a gun owner, or so-and-so was ex-religion, or this is the fault of pro-lifers, or It's just crazy how politics blame, instead of trying to understand, really maturely trying to find that common ground. And I also get frustrated because the leaders who are supposed to be, aspiring leaders, heads of state who address the topic of terrorism, they're murderous in and of themselves. So it's hard for me to hear their perspective and not be like, those are the ones I have trouble with, the really big ones I have trouble with. And it's all encompassing. So you want to lecture us on terrorism, and yet you refuse to admit that you're a terrorist yourself. So the arguments that ensue make it really hard to find comfort. And so how do you get your hands around this? How do you find perspective with something so horrific so that you can go on? First of all, you just need time, so that, not that it's even perspective. I don't think you can get perspective on something so horrific. You just need time so that you can compartmentalize it and put it away. And so I was hearing Alex Jones this week say that, and narcissistic people, they're back to doing their selfies and it's just like, you want to act normal, things aren't normal. And I'm like, I totally agree, dude. But after something horrible happens like that, people are craving normalcy. They don't want to face it head on. And so people do the same things. They're engaging in the same behaviors. And whether I did it this week, I was doing selfies in my workouts. But I still, even though I'm putting that out there with that visual and that perspective, I'm deeply affected by what happened. So don't mistake me for just ignoring a problem and moving on. I'm just trying to make my life feel normal still in the face of something that's so totally abnormal. I'll give you an example. After 9/11, when the planes flew into the building, Howard Stern kept broadcasting, and it was a good thing he did, because if he just ditched it and ran, it's like that. What he did by staying on the air, I think, was comforting people because of the normalcy of his willingness to stay there and be there, not running away from it. So we got to try and keep doing some of the same things. We can't lead a life of fear. So this week, last night I reasoned that I'm in this mood where I want to withdraw from people, and it's not good for me. It's not good for my sobriety. And so I was like trying to rationalize in my head not going to Marijuana Anonymous. And I was like, all these excuses I'm making, this desire to withdraw, they are the reasons why I should go and be engaging with other people and being around other people. It's just necessary. So in my case, I was withdrawing from people a little bit, and I have to do the opposite. When I'm feeling bummed out, I need to go and try and engage with like minds. And I find that of all these sort of anonymous groups of this sort that I have gone to, this Marijuana Anonymous is the most open-minded of all the ones I've been exposed to. So I'm actually pretty grateful to have that group of people. And I have to, maybe I'm conforming, but it's also like, don't mistake, when I'm being critical of conforming to every little thing, it doesn't mean that you have to be a loudmouth with your opinion in every situation. There's a time and place for it. And you also you have to try and have a wise perspective about whether this is a good time or place to dive in there with an attitude about something, or whether that's going to be helpful at all. ask yourself. My dad said it when I was doing radio years ago. You can do crazy things, but does it really help you or hurt you? And sometimes I repeat that advice back to him because my dad is similarly a hothead for reasons I consider very much so to be just. And so this is how I'm digesting this week. I think other than saying the F word when my phone came up with the reminder, I've done a very good job of expressing my thoughts right now in a dignified fashion, I think. But maybe, I don't know, but I know there are people out there, they've heard snippets and bits and pieces of this, and they're the type to just be reactive and start judging. And people who already have this idea of me where I'm written off in their mind as a bad person, and there's nothing I can do about it. So, gee whiz. So much of it is just having to surrender and accept the circumstances. I will wrap this up very soon. Along these lines, I have managed to keep my morning routine up very well, like I was saying with the exercise, but also the meditation routine. And what happened with the club in Florida, it was creeping in there a little bit, but I really have developed a skill in the morning. And I thought maybe I should be doing this more than once in a day. Maybe I should be extending the length of it to get more benefit if my mind can stay clear. I've been doing an excellent job at surrendering and letting go of things that are in my head. And it's kind of fascinating because, when I think about how I was getting high and 10 minutes after getting high, my mind could be in a neurotic, spinning, angry, negative state. It's kind of extraordinary what I'm able to pull off meditating most of the time. It really is. So I encourage people to look into that and don't be like, I don't want to hear this, I can't. That's just not me. I just can't relax my mind. And you know what? You just have to understand that you're human and that's normal. Your mind is, as it was once described to me, like a drunken monkey. It's just always coming up with a narrative, always daydreaming. So my goal is to stop daydreaming, stop going with the narrative most of the time. Occasionally I'll let myself flow with something because in a relaxed state of mind you can have a good train of thought, a good productive thought about something. But so I really recommend trying meditation, but also having an attitude being like, I'm surrendering to this. I'm letting go. I'm giving up on holding on to these things that are bothering me. I'm letting them wash out. Because sometimes things will enter in my head and they're trivial or they're not productive. And I'm just like, wash that out, rinse that out, just let it go and come back to this peaceful clarity. Forget about time, forget about my ego. And I think doing so, all these things, it makes you more humble. And I have problems with being arrogant sometimes too. I'm only human, I'm not perfect. I am just a human being and I'm not perfect. I wish more people could have, what I like having, I have very few friends in my life with whom I can differ. And, we differ, but we're not mad at each other. We go away respecting one another's opinion. We go away still loving one another. And that's a very rare type of friend to find. I find that those types of friends are the hardest thing because I have extreme thoughts and views about all kinds of things. Like I said, there are things I feel strongly about and I'm not willing to conform. It's like, I'll tell the 99 other people, you guys are out of your mind. It sucks being that 1%. And I'm not saying I might be wrong, but I try to be wise. I try to be fair and all of that. But I'm going to wrap this up. I said enough today. If you're struggling, try and find the right people to talk to. Even this book I was reading, The Magic of Thinking Big, I'm going to this meetup in a short bit, so this show might not be posted immediately, but I'm going to this meetup because it's like, this book says, always try and get out there and put yourself in a new social setting with a new group of people, because life's so short, you got to meet those people who you connect with in life, and then that is the meaning of life. It is not to be withdrawn from people. Solitude is a good thing, but everything in moderation. You have to find the right balance with it. If you're sitting alone all the time, then you've tilted to an unhealthy extreme with it. Solitude is part of the balance I find between social relationships that helps me feel like I don't go crazy being around people. I'm also a little bit of an introvert, so at the end of the night, I'm always the guy who's like, hey everybody, I'm leaving the party early, have a good one. And they're like, you're going to bed early? People pick on me, but that's just who I am. I told you, I'm willing not to be the conformist. So the conformist would stay at the party, getting drunk, having another drink. And I'm just like, no, thank you. It's time for me to call it. Because I just know when I've hit my threshold, my limit. And beyond that is not enjoyable. And I got to take a break from it. So let me wrap this up. I want to thank everybody who's listening. If you find this interesting, I sure do appreciate your support, and I appreciate your feedback. So if you want to hear more, go to FitSpaz.com. I want to thank Kevin MacLeod, who provides the amazing musical backdrop for this podcast. You can go to incompetech.com to find out more about him. Also, if you want to follow me on social media, watch these YouTube videos, you can find it all through my website by going to FitSpaz.com. If you have friends in recovery or friends who just like deep conversation like this, I know I got a little political today, but I think I was very dignified about it compared to how I was feeling the last couple of days. I felt like I would have thrown a temper tantrum doing this the last couple of days. It's much nicer when I make my point and strongly and stay in a cool head. I also think it's fun to be entertaining and get out there a while with it. But never mind that. FitSpaz.com. I'm Paul, the producer. I hope you guys are doing okay. You can send feedback to me by sending emails to paul@fitspaz.com. And so everybody, have a nice day. Have a nice remainder of your week. I hope you're all well, and peace.